Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Buckeye Roast. It's your boy Ron James flying solo today. Our guy Q just moved to Arizona and he is still getting set up. So I am here today to talk a little bit about Ryan Day's post-game press conference and my thoughts after week one. Appreciate everyone in the chat. We see our guy Travis was in here first, so you guys know the rules. He gets the shout out. So good morning, Travis. Good morning, everyone else in the chat. Appreciate you guys pulling up. So the Buckeyes are coming off a 35-7 win over Youngstown State. I feel like Buckeye fans were in a much better mood coming out of the game on Saturday than they were the previous week, so that's always a good thing. And then I had my Steelers completely ruin my Sunday, so at least I have the Buckeyes to cheer for, so that's good. But I'm going to jump right into this Ryan Day press conference. It seemed like the overarching theme of this press conference was Kyle McCord being significantly more comfortable. He mentioned Kyle's comfort and poise multiple times throughout the interview. That's something that we hit on in yesterday's episode of Buckeye BS. We made the joke that Kyle looked even more confident in the dance circles yesterday. You could tell that he's starting to come into his own and really get comfortable with this team as his. So that was one thing that Ryan Day really hit on is Kyle's comfort. And that's something that I asked, are we going to see going forward now that we have what we think to be our starting quarterback? You know, these guys have been splitting reps all through camp since spring. And I think something that's really underrated and not being talked about right now is the lack of preparation that the true starters actually receiving, because they're splitting 50% of the reps in practice. They've been splitting the reps all through spring and camp. So I'm interested to see how Kyle, or I mean, if this battle is still technically going, Devin looks when they get 100% of the reps during practice. They're no longer looking over their shoulder, and they could really assert themselves as the leader of this team. We had our Bleacher Report midweek update last week where we talked about the need for a vocal leader and the quarterback to assert themselves as an alpha on this team. And I think that's something that we're going to be able to see once a starter is officially named and they can really stop looking over their shoulder and really step up, because I feel like both of these guys are probably tiptoeing around the woody, not trying to overstep too much, but at the same time show their level of leadership that they have with this team. And I think them having the comfort of being named the starter will give them that comfort to really assert themselves in the woody and really take control of this team. Ryan Day was asked, will he announce a starter, or is he ready to name a starter after that game? And he said he'll determine over the weekend, but he wasn't ready to make a decision. He also said later in the interview that he needed to discuss settling the quarterback situation, because that is something that they want to do before Notre Dame. So that's something that he's going to discuss with the staff, but it is something on their mind that they hope to do here soon. Another big theme of Ryan Day's press conference was this clock. On the first Bleacher Report instant reaction that we did winners and losers, and the losers that I listed was number one, college football fans. This running clock is awful right now, and I feel like everyone's talking about it. I feel like we're beating a dead horse, but at the same time, like, it can't be understated. Ryan Day talked about the lack of plays. They said that he's used to having around 15 possessions a game. This past weekend, they only had 9 total possessions and 60 plays. So he's talking about the difficulties that he's having getting everyone reps. We've talked on Buckeye BS yesterday about how Ryan Day said in his post-game presser after week one that he wanted to get Dallin Hayden carries, and Dallin has to get carries. But he's saying we're seeing so few rushing opportunities without this lack of about 30 plays that they're missing out on that they're normally used to, that it's hard to get guys rotations because, one, there aren't as many rushing opportunities because he said he's throwing to try to preserve as much clock as possible and get as many plays in, and also because you're already rotating 3 backs in there. So by the time you limit the amount of rushing opportunities and you're rotating 3 backs, it's hard to get into the 4 and 5 deep on this roster. And I feel like that's something that Ryan Day is really battling with right now, is this clock and lack of possessions. And then another thing that you talked about is the need to fix this offensive line. And I think that's something that everyone saw on Saturday this week and the prior week. It seemed like they were able to correct a few things as far as in the run game. It seemed like we had a lot more success, a lot less guys looking around like this, confused, like who am I supposed to be blocking? With a lack of direction. So it seems like they were able to get things short up in the run game, but we saw a lot of penalties yesterday from the offensive line, specifically left tackle Josh Simmons. And that's something that we knew when he was coming to Ohio State, that he was one of the highest penalized players, offensive line players in the country last year. But we all expected Josh Fry to be able to clean some of those things up. Mike hit on it yesterday in the episode of Buckeye BS, talking about his pad level. A lot of the times we're seeing Josh Simmons get up into people's faces. He's holding the top of their shoulder pads, just really struggling to get his pads low and really get into the chest of some of these people. So hopefully that's something that Justin Fry is able to correct, and it's definitely something that we're going to want to see before the Notre Dame game. I caught a little bit of the Notre Dame game, and we heard a familiar name, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, was wreaking havoc in backfields. I'm not sure if that's going to be an advantage for the Buckeyes. I would imagine some of our backup tackles are familiar with some of JJB's moves from their times at Ohio State together. So I'm interested to see how those matchups will play against Notre Dame. But overall, Ryan Day really had three consistent themes throughout the course of this interview. He was really pleased with Kyle's comfort and poise, and said that you could just see the overall level of comfort that Kyle had after having the film review, and just coming in knowing that he's a starter 2 weeks in a row after getting that experience as a starter the previous week. He also talked about the lack of plays, and I think that's just something we're going to be hearing about from Ryan Day the entire season, because this is just something that's really giving him headaches. And I think it's another reason why you're seeing such low scoring output from the Buckeyes. As far as I think on Saturday, Ryan Day said if they don't get the holding call, they're at 67% touchdown completion. I mean, if they're getting their 15 possessions that they're used to seeing, you're talking about 72 to 73 points on the scoreboard. So I know a lot of Buckeye fans are worried about the lack of scoring output by the Buckeyes right now, but I think that's something that really has to do with the clock. And a lot of these teams, Cam brought this up on the show yesterday, these past two teams really aren't playing to win. They're trying to keep it respectable and stay alive in the game as long as possible. They're running the clock out. They're not passing the ball. The clock's not stopping because there is no passing attack from these teams that we're playing. So the Buckeyes' possessions are severely limited. I think as they play a team like Western Kentucky that likes to pass the ball around and spread it around a lot more, the clock's going to be stopped because of incompletions and things of that nature. And then they'll be able to get more possessions, and you'll be able to see them fully open up this offense, get more guys in the rotation. It's not just guys on the offense that are missing out on reps. I feel like that's another reason why we're not seeing as much CJ Hicks and a lot of rotation on the defense, because, again, I believe the stat was 32 actual pass rush opportunities in the past 2 weeks, and everybody's like, well, why aren't these guys getting home? Why aren't we running up the sacks numbers? Do we need to shake up the rotation? And I say everyone should probably pump the brakes a little bit on that, because I don't know how much the lack of production is actually due to pass rush opportunities. So when you start splitting up those already limited opportunities between all the guys on that defensive line, it's hard to see those stats that we're expecting. And I think we're going to get a better look at the Ohio State pass rush this week against a Western Kentucky. Another person that had an interview yesterday after the game was Kyle McCord, and he touched on what Ryan Day said about his level of comfort, and said that he was significantly more comfortable coming into this week. He said after last week, he was able to carry that confidence, having that start, getting through the game, getting the win on the road against a Big Ten opponent. He was able to carry that confidence forward into the next week. They asked him, does he expect Ryan Day to name him the starter? And he had a really good answer that I liked, and I think it was a very mature answer. He said he's only worried about making the most of his opportunities on the field, whether that's one possession, whether that's two possessions, whether that's the entire game. He just wants to be thankful for the opportunities that he's receiving here at Ohio State and go out there and make the most of them. I thought that was a very mature answer. To see that was another takeaway from his interview. He seemed to be more sure of himself in the interview, didn't look as down as he did the previous week. And I think that's part of being the Ohio State quarterback. There's little silly things that we joke about and look at, like their suits before the game, before the skull session, their overall demeanor, their body language. And I feel like you can just see the confidence on Kyle McCord continuing to grow, whether that's him dancing in the pregame warmups or it's his confidence at the podium. They asked him about his first touchdown to Marvin Harrison Jr., and before he could even get the response out, you saw the smile on his face. He talked about how it's just been such a long time coming since they became teammates as sophomores in high school at St. Joseph's Prep in Pennsylvania. They'd played in a couple games together, but they had never reached the end zone. So I know that's something that they have probably talked about together for years. They were roommates as freshmen at Ohio State. So I know that's something that they've probably discussed and thought about that moment for a long time. And it was really cool just to see the natural reaction from Kyle, because I don't think he expected the question in the moment. And when he got the question, all he could do is smile. So you could really tell how much that meant to him. And, he always refers to Marv as his best friend. So being able to, almost be at the end of this quarterback battle. And I know his intentions when he came to Ohio State were, I'm going to play with my best friend and we're going to recreate the same success that we had in high school. And I think yesterday was the start of that. And, you could see the raw emotion on Kyle's face when they asked him that question of, how happy he was for that moment and how excited he was to share that with his best friend. He also stated that he was a lot calmer this week, something, again, that Ryan Day touched on a lot, and then felt that the offense took a step in the right direction. They asked him what were some of the things that he thought that he did well, and he said that he got the ball out on time, something that Ryan Day said during his press conference about Kyle is that he didn't think that Kyle missed any throws this week. And then he backtracked a little bit and said, well, let me watch the film. But in the moment, coming out of the game, he felt like Kyle really wasn't missing throws on Saturday, which is a good thing as far as, during the quarterback evaluation process, you're going through a quarterback battle. You want to see a guy go out there and run the offense, not just go out there and make plays and improvise or things like that, but you want him to actually go through his progressions. And that's something that we heard from the announcers, Kyle going through 1, 2, 3, even all 4 reads during the game on Saturday. So seeing Kyle be able to get through his progressions and really go out there and run Ryan Day's offense was good to see. And I think he was comfortable with that, and Ryan Day. I know this is a shorter show today because Q is not here. I just wanted to give a few other thoughts on the game. Q will be back tomorrow. We're just getting him some Ethernet cords, and, he got to get his tables built and everything. He just touched down in Arizona on Friday, so it's been a mad scramble for him. Big shout out to him for being able to make all these shows throughout this crazy moving process. I know he's starting a big new job, going through a bunch of certification processes. So big shout out to Q for being a great teammate, and I'm trying my best to hold it down for us today, but he should likely be back tomorrow. One of the things that I really wanted to touch on was the offensive line penalties absolutely have to stop. I used to talk about last year, DeJuan Jones false starts making me want to throw my remote through the TV. I don't think there's anything more infuriating than pre-snap penalties. And the only thing that could possibly be more infuriating is hands to the face calls against our offensive linemen. Like, you have to get your hands lower. You have to get your pad level lower. Some of these penalties by Josh Simmons are just inexcusable. I have all the faith in the world that Justin Fry will be able to get these corrected by the time we start playing meaningful games. But it is something that I'm starting to be concerned about, and something that I'm going to want to keep an eye on is this left tackle play, because I feel like it's something that we absolutely have to get figured out. And it was something that was talked about a lot during the offseason, and all of us have said the same things. Well, Josh Simmons, you know what I mean? He's a big athletic body, and Justin Fry is a great offensive line coach, so this is something that he should be able to get settled. But as the weeks go on, I feel like we're seeing better things out of the run game overall, the quarterback stayed clean for the most part. But these penalties are just something that we're going to have to clean up. Is it good enough for now? Yes. But is it championship caliber? Absolutely not. So that's something that I'm going to keep an eye on because I believe it's going to absolutely have to elevate for the Buckeyes to be a true title contender. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about after the game, Denzel Burke. I cannot sing this kid's praises enough. That interception was beautiful on Saturday. Last year, we saw him struggle a lot to get his head around in coverage. We'd see times of him getting beat with him never even getting his head around and just sticking a hand up and just getting mossed. And you're like, what the hell is that, bro? You used to play wide receiver. You would think that he would have ball skills and be able to track the ball in the air and be able to go up and grab it. And that's exactly what we saw on Saturday. And last year, we went an entire season without an interception from a cornerback. And then we were able to see Denzel go out there and do it week 2. And I think that's one of multiple that we will see this year from Denzel. I mean, he's just been completely blanketing these wide receivers. Every time he's in frame, he's getting his hand on the ball or on someone's hip immediately. So I'm just super excited about Denzel. A lot of the talk of the offseason was Iggy was going to be a great addition to the room, and I think he is. I think he elevated the level of that room and level of intensity. One thing that I always used to talk about Denzel Burke, even as a freshman when he was having a great season, is I've never seen someone look so passive playing football or so indifferent to tackling. And a lot of the time it was kind of just like a cool guy demeanor that he had as a freshman, and which worked when he was playing well. And he's had a very similar demeanor last year, but he was struggling, so it didn't come off as cool guy. It seemed as disinterested guy, but I mean, he looked totally locked in now, and you could see with the energy and physicality that David Igbinosun has brought to the room that it's also elevated the play of Denzel Burke. He seems much more physical, ready to defend at the line of scrimmage. So just overall, a big shout out to Denzel Burke, very, very committed to getting his body right for the season and buying into the offseason program and just coming back a dog this year. So just a big shout out to him, someone that was criticized last year, didn't quite live up to the expectations that he set as a freshman. But this year, he's out there balling. I hope to see more of it. So just a big shout out to Denzel Burke for the way he's out there playing. I touched on it earlier. I think that the QB, whoever it's going to be, likely Kyle McCord, is going to benefit significantly from being named the starter. 2 full weeks of prep where he's receiving the majority of the snaps. He's able to lead the team as if it's his, not looking over his shoulder, receive the support of his backup quarterback, and really just move forward with this as his team. I really think we're going to see the offense take a step forward. One, we showed a very vanilla offense week 1, a lot of 12 personnel, didn't sling it around too much. It seemed like the playbook opened up a little bit more. We saw Marv finally get loose yesterday. And I think with Kyle being able to receive all of the first team reps, a full game without worrying about, on the 4th drive, am I going to have to go sit down and then come back out? I just want to see Kyle get a full rhythm, a full week of practice, and just come out here as the starting quarterback. I'm ready to move on with this quarterback battle. Stop talking about a battle and just see what this team can really be now that we have a starter, and really just lock in with getting comfortability together as a team. And then the last person that I wanted to talk about was G. Scott. Mike had a back and forth with G. Scott Sr. on Twitter because Mike said it looked like your son was right with his decision, because G. Scott Sr. told his son after the season last year, it's time to go. You need to find somewhere else because it's just not going to work for you here. And G said to his dad, the reason why I'm not playing is due to me, not due to Ohio State. I'm not doing the things that are necessary for me to get on the field. And once he locks in and does those things, he's going to get on the field. And he felt like he did those things, and we're seeing that play out on the field now. G. Scott looks like the best blocking tight end on the team, and he was a top 100 wide receiver coming into Ohio State. So we know he has the receiving skills. We know he has the hands, the route running ability. He was in Brian Hartline's room for a year. So I think that G. Scott is going to be an added weapon to this offense. And as he continues to be a blocking threat in this offense, and it's not limited on what downs he can be on the field, I think G. Scott will be a huge lift to this offense. I've been in my notes this entire time because I'm flying solo, so I really haven't had a chance to see the chat. I see our guy Brian saying, hit that like button. I really appreciate that. If you guys could smash that like button. Scrambling a little bit this morning. Didn't even get a chance to tweet the show out, but I did say we're going to do a little bit of a shorter show today. There's 40 of you in here. I'd love to get this to 20 likes before we get out of here. A big thank you for all you guys staying in here, hanging out with me, even though I am flying solo. But I did just want to get in here and touch base after the Ryan Day press conference on Saturday and talk a little bit about Kyle's performance and some of the things that we saw. If you want to get a more in-depth breakdown of our thoughts after the game, make sure you tap into yesterday's episode of Buckeye BS. It's the episode before this on the channel, so make sure you check that out. Everybody was there. Well, Q was there in the chat heavy, but he was not on the stream. Mike was there, Cam was there, but whole gang should be back together this Sunday. Q should be back on the show tomorrow. We have the Fans Edge on Wednesday at 7:30 with Mike, Cam, Disney, and EG. We have a new program coming to the channel that should be up Tuesday or Wednesday. Dog's Film Room Breakdown. Dog of Chrissy and Dog TV will be doing film breakdowns for us on the channel. So we are going to get that up here in the next couple days. Obviously, Buckeye Roast Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. We have our college football pregame on Saturdays at 10 a.m. with Big Chris Drew of Menace to Sports. Big thank you for you guys pulling up this morning. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2_TEES. That's 2 T's. You can find me on Twitch at the same thing. TikTok, 2Shiesty. And then here on this channel, 6 days a week. We appreciate you guys pulling up for the Buckeye Roast. Sorry for the short episode, but we will have Q back tomorrow and back to the regular scheduled programming. Have a good morning. Appreciate you, gang. Shout out to everyone in the chat, and make sure you like that video. Have a good one. Yeah.